I'm a professional organizer and lifestyle transformation coach. I have teamed up with JK Moving Services, rather, to bring you this webinar series every week called Workspace Wednesdays, Making It Work for You. And it's a community of people coming together, kind of bonding during this time, during the rough pandemic and the challenges that we all have, in hopes of making it a little bit easier for everyone to get through it. So every week I share a different topic, and today's topic is juggling work-life balance, as I'm sure a lot of us have a challenge with, especially while we're working at home. And I'm hearing that so many people feel that they're busier than ever now that they're working from home. Isn't that interesting that some of us have gained all the commuting time back and we feel like, oh, we're free, you know, we have an extra 2 hours in our day, but how is it that that gets filled up so quickly with everything else? And it's really hard to balance between our home responsibilities and time with our family and get our work done. And we feel like we're just not able to handle it all. Who is having that issue right now? Tell me in the chat window. Hi, Leela. Thank you for joining again. Who is having an issue with work-life balance, and what is your main challenge? I'd love to hear from you in the chat window. And while you all are thinking about that, I'm going to start talking about, there are 5 different things I want to talk about today. And the first one is setting up a daily schedule and routine. And that's especially important to be able to juggle the work-life balance, because we're at home. A lot of times we forget that we need to keep our routine in order to stay productive and not throw our balance off. So one great way of doing that is to make sure that we keep our wake up time, our work hours, and our rest and break times as part of the routine, so it doesn't get all thrown out of whack. My recommendation is that you still wake up at the same time that you would if you were going to the office, for a few reasons. You know, one reason is that when you do end up returning to work, you won't have to readjust your body clock. So that's really important to make sure that you continue that schedule going. And another reason is that you'll show your family that you're working consistently, you've got set hours. It helps them to feel less like this is a vacation for you, and they'll be inclined to interrupt you less as well. So who is actually being good about keeping a work routine right now and waking up at the same time and keeping your work hours? We did talk about that briefly in last week's topic, how to communicate expectations and set boundaries with your family while you're working from home. And one of those tips from last week was to make sure that you communicate those work hours with your family so that they don't come in and interrupt you thinking that you're just sitting there and watching YouTube videos or taking a vacation all day. So let me go back to the chat window. All right, so we've got Linda saying the first 2 weeks were difficult because I was trying to do it all well, working mom of toddler. But weeks have been better since then as the world acclimated to the new normal. Less emails, more efficient video calls, and I've taken more breaks. Isn't that great? I think a lot of people are starting to get used to it now. By the time we all get used to it, we'll have to end up going back to the office. When in the office, we have organic breaks, chatting with coworkers, walking to get coffee, walking to meetings. That's right. That is exactly right. So it just happens. People come in and you walk together to go get a cup of coffee, or you go outside for some fresh air. And when you're at home, you're more inclined to sit and be in your zone, close your door, get on your computer, and hours will go by and you'll forget that you haven't even taken a single break. Okay, Renee says, me too. Jill says, I will do well for a few days, but then I fall off and struggle. That is a challenge. Just keeping it consistent. If you're able to do it and consistently for a few days, and then when you feel like you're falling off or breaks aren't happening as frequently, maybe just set a reminder for yourself, like you're setting up a little meeting, and that reminder should say, break time for me, or self-care time for me, whatever that might mean for you, or snack time. Carla says, I wake up at the same time, but stay in bed longer, working on emails, etc. Yes, that's easy to do, right? You can still be productive on emails, on certain things if you're still in bed. So there's nothing wrong with that. You're awake, you're doing some work, and you can still stay in your pajamas. So Maria says, my son is at home. Okay. How is that affecting you, Maria? And Jeff is saying, I've experienced in my business forensic or investigative accounting. What has been hard, despite the fact that I have set up a routine, is that I have had difficulty obtaining documents and information that I need. Not sure if there's a solution other than having flexible hours. Can you elaborate on that, Jeff? Do you mean that it's hard for you to get what you need from other people that you're communicating with? What do you mean by that exactly? Maria says, I have to do homework with him. Oh, okay. So you're referring to your son. Yes, I find that with home stuff to do, even when I start a design, I feel like I need to do house cleanup and get distracted easy. That is one of the main things that I keep hearing. Since we are working from home, it is so easy to look over there if we're sitting at the kitchen table, look over there to the kitchen sink or on the countertop and feel like, oh my goodness, I need to get up and do these dishes, or I need to, put this away or do that. So that's why it's very important that you assign a space that is distraction free to the best of your ability, and make sure that you communicate that to everyone. Hey, if I disappear for a few hours and you don't hear from me, and you're used to seeing me pop in and out of the family room or the kitchen, it's because I really want to get my schedule back on track. Okay, just make sure you communicate those expectations to your family so they don't get upset with you all of a sudden for disappearing after they've gotten used to seeing you sit around the kitchen table and get some work done for the first 3 weeks. Okay, so let's see. Linda says, cool work buddy, Maria. Yeah, that's right. If you have a child that's old enough at home, sometimes they can, be your assistant even. So if they're not in class, if you're not homeschooling them during certain hours, then why not put them to work? Keep them busy. They get bored too. Keep them off of screens and have them be your little assistant throughout the day. That's a great idea. Dell says, I find my workouts stopped and all I did was work for the first few weeks. Getting the workouts back in my routine has been difficult. Yes, that's one of the big things, is making sure that you fit that exercise and self-care time into your routine. That's one of the other topics we'll be talking about in this series, is how to make sure you fit that in and you don't neglect that part of your day, which is very important. Cisco says, me too. My problem is my supervisors have had me join more teleconference meetings while teleworking, and then they'll just call to talk and catch up during working hours. Okay, yep, that is a problem. A lot of people, I feel like, have been slammed by more teleconferencing and Zoom meetings than ever. And last week I made a mention to a post that I saw on Facebook. Someone said, does anyone else feel like you are a Zombie? Because we're on one Zoom call after another. So I think sometimes people just don't understand that you have so much going on. Again, I suggest communicating the expectations. Even if it's your boss, just let them know that, look, you already gave me this work to do. I'm trying to get this deliverable out or meet this deadline. And if you schedule back-to-back teleconference meetings, then when am I going to have time to focus on the actual work? Let them know it's perfectly okay to say that I cannot do something because it will prevent me from finishing something else that you expressed, importance on. And also, I don't want to cut into my family time and me time. And they should be able to understand that, as long as it's communicated properly. Linda says, to Dell, I joined a tag group on Peloton that also has a Facebook group that has helped me get back in the workout routine. That's a great suggestion, actually. Whenever you join a group where everyone is doing the workout together and kind of keeping each other accountable, I find that that's really nice because you keep each other motivated. So that's a great point, Linda. Jeff says, other people in litigation, it's called production of documents, and others have been real slow to respond. Okay, so So when people are slow to respond, perhaps just send them a communication and say, I would really like to receive this because X, Y, and Z cannot be done until I receive this piece of information, this valuable piece of information from you. Let them know how important their feedback is, and kindly include in there that your work or your next piece is dependent upon their piece being delivered to you. And then hopefully they'll respond better to that. Give that a try, Jeff. And hopefully if you join next week, you can let me know how that worked out for you. Dell says, I actually had to stop working from bed on my phone because I would not rest and was becoming very exhausted and didn't realize this was sapping my energy. That is actually a very good point, because it's okay if you wake up in the morning and start, checking a few emails before you actually get up. But when you are going to bed at night, put that phone away. You really need time for yourself to rest and just recuperate after a long day of work. So if that phone is going to bed with you and you're checking emails and responding to messages all the way until the time when you just pass out and your eyes close, then you're not doing your body justice of giving it the rest it needs, because you need some wind down time before you actually pass out and fall asleep. Cisco says, wow. What are you saying wow to, Cisco? Linda says, even though I had worked from home prior to this, I would let work seep outside of the office, emails on phone while making a snack, etc. But now I've set the boundary, work only in the office, so no checking on my phone, tablet, unless in office. Love that term, Zombie. Yeah, that's a good point, Linda. Once you set that boundary and you say, look, right now my office is my home office in the basement or in the guest room or wherever that might be for you, and you change your mindset around what is expected to go on once you leave that room or that space, and you tell yourself, once I leave this space, which is designated as my home office, I am not to look at my phone. For instance, I'll give you an example for me. Once I leave my home office, I will just leave my phone and my laptop in that room. And then because I'm leaving to go either take a break, get a snack, talk to my family, and I don't want to imagine taking your work with you. So you're strapping on your office, your desk, your equipment, and you're taking it with you into your family time and family space. So it's always nice to kind of change your mindset around that and make sure you leave everything in the office. Jeff says, good idea. Thanks for the input. You're welcome, Jeff. Cisco says, wow, to the other testimonies, I'm touched. Oh yeah, isn't it great when you hear from other people what their challenges are and how they're addressing their challenges? And that's the whole point of bringing everyone together on this platform, so that you understand that you're not alone. We're all going through this. And that's the point of talking through it with each other, so that you get some tips and inspiration and hopefully some things that will work for you that have worked for other people. Jill says, my to-do list is growing and growing, which is making the balance harder and harder. And the number of rainy days is absolutely zapping my energy. I've recently tried very hard to keep my work only to the office. Just like Linda said, I try to avoid all connected devices while eating lunch and taking breaks. This has really helped. That's really good to hear that that's helped. It typically does work well if you just make that mental note to keep your devices in the space that's designated for work. And as far as the to-do list growing, that's one of the other items that I'm going to talk about. And I'll go into it right now. And that's being able to say no, because it's so easy for our to-do list to just grow, and people don't understand what you already have on that to-do list, right? So it's perfectly okay to say no to certain things. Recognize what's absolutely important. You don't want to be fighting fires and jumping, at the first sign when someone says, I need you to do this, and you say, okay. And then guess what? your important items that were on your to-do list will not get done if you're handling everyone else's urgent items. Because keep in mind, they're urgent to that person, but they might not be urgent to you. So it's important that you focus on your important items. And otherwise you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to take on too much. You're going to start to feel resentful towards everything and everyone. So most people will understand if you just tell them simply, explain to them and communicate, in a pleasant way, that you cannot help them at this time, that normally you would, but right now, maybe this week, your plate is already full, your to-do list is already overwhelming, you're trying to get your own items done, and you simply cannot take on one more obligation to help someone else, because after all, you don't want them to be disappointed in you if you take it on and you're not able to deliver. So that's never good. And then always make sure that on that to-do list, it's not all about work or home chores, that you've got your self-care items. We touched on that, but I want to repeat it. Make sure the self-care items are on your to-do list, because it is just as important to, let's say, go wash my hair. I know some women say, oh, it's been days since I've been able to do that because I've been so busy. Well, if you got to put it on your to-do list or put a meeting reminder for yourself, do it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to make sure you get up in the mornings and do 15 minutes of, light stretching, exercise, meditation, whatever it is that you need to do to get your body up and ready for the day, make sure you add that on your to-do list, because sometimes we have all the best intentions of getting those things done, and then we completely forget as the day starts, and then we look at our to-do list and we're like, oh my gosh, I have all this stuff to do by the end of the day. Well, everything else I wanted to do has got to give. Well, no, we should not compromise our self-care. Okay, so it's really important that you use, if you have any extra time left over, use that to just learn something new, just nourish your mind, body, and soul. This will make you better at the things that you want to do in life ultimately, and give you a renewed sense of energy for your work-life balance. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any issues with people just constantly coming to them with requests and needing help with things? And is it hard for you to say no? How do you handle that? Let's see. Kathy says, if I can't get outside because of rain, I find a YouTube video on funny pets. It makes me smile and releases tension of the nonstop work. That's a good one, Kathy. I actually do the same thing. I love watching funny videos of pets and small kids. They just make me laugh. And it doesn't matter if it's in the middle of my day, the end of my day, the start of my day. If I ever feel like, I'm feeling sluggish, that's all I need to do. Literally, even if it's only a 20-second video, it really gets me going. That works wonders. Jeff says to Jill, do you set priorities on your to-do list? I learned a long time ago to make a list, but give them a priority. List can use numbers as you develop it, and then use letters to set priority. Yes, absolutely. It's very important to prioritize your list. You want to make sure that the important things get done first, but sometimes keep in mind that the most difficult and daunting tasks, which we tend to put off for the very end of our day, those are the things that need to be pushed up front. You need to push yourself to get those things done first, and then you'll feel really good about doing the thing that you typically tend to procrastinate on and push off to the end. You'll feel really good about that, and then you can move on to the other easier things. Also, if you have the most amount of energy during a morning block of time or an afternoon block of time, make sure that is when you start doing the most difficult thing, because you don't want to wait until you're completely zapped of energy at the end of your day and say, okay, I guess I should sit and start working on this, difficult task. Because guess what? If you were, prone to procrastinating ever before, that is not a good time to start working on something like that. Another idea is, if you know that you need to push yourself to get that difficult thing done first, but you just can't for whatever reason, you're not getting the motivation, do a couple of really quick and easy items on your list. I call those easy wins. So get the easy wins out of the way. Then you feel really good about actually checking off a couple of things on that list. And then you can perhaps move on to the more difficult things. So I hope that helps. And Jill says, I do, Jeff. I do prioritize each day. I walk through my overall to-dos and plan the following day's priorities. But unfortunately, lots of balls in the air and things that come up that can't be ignored. Last week during this call, I felt I had it all together, but today I'm clearly overwhelmed. Yeah, some days we have that overwhelm, Jill, and it's perfectly okay. We all go through our days where we feel absolutely overwhelmed. So hopefully taking more frequent breaks on those days when you recognize that you're overwhelmed, that's the important thing. Recognize and be okay with it. Accept that this is normal. It happens to everyone. Don't beat yourself up for it. It's perfectly okay to be overwhelmed on some days, and just do what Kathy was suggesting. Find a funny video and, laugh through it, and just take that little, 20, 30, 60-second break, and then come back, and you never know, you might feel better about tackling your to-do list. Kathy says it's helpful to get outside for short breaks and stretch and breathe in some deep breaths and enjoy the spring beauty even for a few moments. It's a mindful reset for mind, body, and soul. Absolutely, Kathy. It's so important to get some fresh air. I mentioned last time that one day I decided my home office was going to be the deck. So I went and sat on the deck, and it was a beautiful day, and I just enjoyed that weather, and I was very productive. It was really nice. Maria says the to-do list, I agree. I started this week with unrealistic expectations, and I worked till 2 a.m. or past midnight the last 2 days. My mornings were awful getting up. It's crazy how this was not an issue working from the office. No matter what, there's a huge difference between working in the office and at home. Really hard for me to say no to other people's requests, but I will keep this in mind. Yes, it's all about setting realistic expectations, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure. You don't want to end up being resentful of other people who have monopolized your to-do list and your day. And before you know it, like you said, it's past midnight or it's 2 a.m. and you're absolutely exhausted, and you want to completely be there for your clients, for yourself, for your family. So it all goes back to setting proper expectations and learning when to say no, so you can make sure you get the things done that you've already promised without bringing on more things and completely throwing your schedule off balance. Della's saying, this is great advice. You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really cannot hold off on difficult things. Otherwise, everything feels difficult. That's right. So if you put off the difficult things, then you have that hanging over your head, and you're going to feel like, the rest of the list is somehow kind of dragging. But if you knock out that difficult thing when you have that big abundant amount of energy during your day, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to find that it makes a huge difference, and you're going to whiz through the rest of your to-do list. Trust me on this, because I've had those difficult moments myself, and I still do. It happens to all of us. We just need to recognize when it happens and understand what needs to be done. If it's worked for you at one point, then remind yourself, that last time when I had that really difficult task and I was putting it off till the end of the day or the end of the week, it didn't really serve me well. And the entire week, I felt like I had this thing hanging over my head. So let me not do that same thing again. Let me approach it differently this time. Knock it out in the beginning of my week or the beginning of my day, and then I'll feel much better towards the end of the day or the end of the week about getting everything else done. Kathy says, that is really helpful, Michelle. I sometimes procrastinate on the difficult task, and that makes sense. Yes, good. I'm glad that makes sense, Kathy. And, we all, no matter how organized we are and how, wonderful we are at the jobs we do, we all find ourselves in moments of procrastination. So again, it's very important to recognize that, accept it, and find a way to move past it. We don't want to stay stuck in that moment and beat ourselves up for it, okay? Because this happens to all of us, and it's perfectly okay. Let's see. So Darlene says to Jill, have you thought of delegating your tasks to others, both at home and for the office? Yes. And actually, that's another point I'll be talking about. Let me go through the next two comments. Jeff says, Jill and all, when you feel overwhelmed, remember you solve a crossword puzzle on one clue at a time. That's absolutely right. Baby steps. one step at a time. Okay. We can't tackle everything and just jump in and start working through it without breaking it down into our simple baby steps. Um, and Linda says, I was brutally honest with my board chairman leading into day one with the new work and homeschool schedule, letting her know when I would complete deep work and shallow work and what the homeschool schedule looked like. She responded, absolutely. It's important to spend time with your family without having to worry about work, and offered her help if needed. Isn't that great? You were able to communicate that and she was perfectly okay with it. Sometimes I think we have this fear in our mind. What if that person is not going to be okay with us expressing our feeling and the way we have to balance our home and life? But you know what? We're all human. We all have a home and a life element in our lives. We might not all have children that we have to homeschool, but we all have a home and we all have a work life that we're dealing with at this moment. So I'm sure everyone will understand if communicated properly. I brought calmness to myself where I didn't feel guilty for not doing work during my son's homeschool time, and allowed me to be a better employee, not to mention even more strategic in the way I work. That's amazing. That's really good, Linda. I really like your approach, and I'm glad it worked for you. Okay, so S. Marie is saying, would you mind summarizing the 5 major pieces again? Yes, absolutely. So let me go back to the first step I said was setting up a daily schedule and routine. So make sure that you have normal waking up times, work hours, ending your work day, and break times and going to bed times, so that you feel like you've got a nice sense of a routine, and that will automatically help you feel a little bit more balanced. The other is making sure that you understand it's perfectly okay to say no to other people, so that you don't get overwhelmed with your to-do list, and that you're able to deliver on the things you've already promised without taking on too many other things and feeling resentful. The other one is taking breaks. We mentioned this during last week's Zoom too. For those of you who were on there, it's very important to put that in through your day. And if you forget that you need to take a break periodically, you see that that becomes a pattern for you, and you're forgetting to get up and walk around or have a snack or go to the restroom or stretch, then schedule them for yourself. Just go ahead and put them in your calendar and have little reminders go off that you need to take a break. The other one is very important, and that's task delegation. So if you have a lot of things going on and you're typically the one who handles everything in terms of home chores and home tasks, but now you're also juggling your full-time job at home, and you're finding yourself maybe with another added responsibility, and that's homeschooling. This, if you've never done this before, this is the prime time to make sure that you start delegating. Okay, it's perfectly okay to do that. So tell different people in your household, if you have other people around, tell them, look, when you are not in a meeting, would you mind taking care of maybe preparing lunch? When you are not doing this, would you mind helping so and so with their homework? And just make sure that you communicate that these are the hours that I'm going to be completely tied up. So today I won't be able to, do the dishes or take out the trash, or I won't be able to spend time on the homeschooling, period of the day, or, dinner is going to be late. But if you wouldn't mind getting started on those things, I'll jump in and help as soon as I can, and there's nothing wrong with having people do everything any given time that you normally would, because they understand that that particular day you're really busy and you wouldn't be asking them to take on everything that you typically, do for them if that weren't the case. And then another final point is staying organized. And we'll go through that in depth on another weekly webinar. But making sure that you stay organized and you're able to find what you need when you need it. That's a big time saver. Making sure your list is organized, making sure your workspace is organized. All of these things will add to your feeling of calmness and your feeling of having control over the situation without feeling like everything is just thrown off balance and adding to your overwhelm. So being organized is extremely important. Again, I'll go into depth in another session, but those are the 5 main points that I wanted to cover today. Helpful tips for making sure that you maintain that work-life balance. And I'm going to just go back to the chat and see if anyone has any other questions. We're wrapping it up here. Linda says, I sometimes will have study YouTube in background on days that I don't feel as energetic. She has studied with me videos using the Pomodoro methods. Great way to make sure you're taking breaks. Oh yes, the Pomodoro method is an amazing way to make sure you're online with your breaks. Kim says, thank you. You're welcome, Kim. Cisco, you're welcome. Sandy, you're very welcome. Yes, see you next week. Mitch, I'm glad you enjoyed the tips. Linda, you're very welcome. This was great. Definitely join future ones. Absolutely. And this was your first one. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Linda. S. Marie, you're very, very welcome. Alicia, my pleasure. Dell, it was another great one. Thanks. Looking forward to next week. You're very welcome, Dell. I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. Kathy, this was great. Thank you so much. Practical information. My pleasure, Kathy. Jill, thank you, everyone. All of these reminders are helpful. You're welcome, Jill, Jeff, Michelle, and Darlene, thanks. You're welcome, Jeff. Robert says, thank you. You're very welcome. Dell will fill out the survey. Great. Oh, thank you for the reminder, Dell. There will be a survey that you all will receive after the webinar. Please make sure to fill it out. I would love to hear what your favorite part of today's session was, what your takeaways were, any takeaway that you can implement in your life right now, and also any topics that you'd like to hear about, any specific things you want me to cover on future webinars. So please make sure you fill out the survey. That would be very helpful. But Tool says, thanks, this was very helpful info. See you next week. Excellent, thank you. Brian, fantastic session, very helpful and inspirational. Be safe, everyone. You're very welcome, Brian. I'm so glad that you all joined today and I was able to share these tips because I feel like work-life balance is a big challenge for everyone. As I mentioned, the whole point of this community and this webinar series is to allow you to feel that you're not alone and we're all coming together to help each other through this. So remember to smile, to laugh. You know, this is all going to be over soon. Enjoy the time that you have with your families right now. Make the most of it, and we will get through this together. Does anyone have any other questions? If you do, please remember to go to askmichelle@jkmoving.com. I'm typing that in right here for you. askmichelle@jkmoving.com. Ask me any questions you like and I'll be sure to answer them for you. And also I'm going to add my Facebook page here because I'm going to add some challenges on the Facebook page following the webinar. I would love for you to all go there and participate on the challenges. This is a great way to keep us motivated in between webinar sessions and kind of share what we've been doing that helps us with other people. So I went ahead and put my Facebook page on there as well. So make sure you pop in there and look for my posts and challenges. Add your own little tips that work for you, because you never know, when you share something, you might be truly helping someone else. Thank you so much for everyone. Oh, and someone, Dell said, Zoom bloopers challenge still going. Yes, absolutely. That's the challenge that I put up for the first session that we had 2 weeks ago, Zoom bloopers, because we talked about how a lot of people have funny things that happen when they have their Zoom sessions. So I'd love to have people put up their own Zoom blooper or find a funny Zoom blooper online and share that, because I'm sure we've all heard of the famous Zoom blooper when someone was taking their laptop into the bathroom with them and not realizing their camera was on. So any funny Zoom blooper, and again, this is just meant to keep it light and have people engaged and laughing during this whole time. So thanks for the reminder on that, Dell. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. Hope you all stay safe and healthy and implement some fabulous tips that we heard from everyone today on maintaining work-life balance, and looking forward to seeing you all again next Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.